Two kingdoms who rose like twin flames in the dark forest, each burning with pride, each claiming the blessing of the gods. And in their pride, they would one day clash. Long ago, in the land we now call Benin, the people lived under kings known as the Ojizos, the kings of the sky. Their rule was great, but time is a river that wears even the hardest stone. The Ojizos fell, and the people cried out for a ruler who would bring order again. So they turned their eyes to I-Life, the cradle of the Yoruba, the navel of the world where Dudua planted the seed of mankind. From there came Aranmian, son of a Dudua, a warrior prince who answered Benin's call. But the customs of the Edo were strange to him. He returned to his father's land, leaving behind a son born of an Edo woman. That son became Ukari, the first Oba of Benin, and thus began a dynasty that would shine for centuries. The Obas of Benin were no May kings. They were the voice of heaven on earth, the sun around which all stars must turn. Their city grew into a marvel, with walls so high that strangers from across the seas, Portuguese men with pale skin, gaze upon it in awe. Yet, far to the west, another flame was kindled. There was a prince of I-Life named Omaremalik in a Sodbode. Guided by the IFA oracle, he journeyed until he came to a forested land. They drove his staff into the earth, and the earth split open, swallowing it whole. The diviners said, "This is a place of your destiny." And so the city was named Akure, from the words Akinwal, the staff has entered the ground. Thus was born the Akure Kingdom, with its kings called Deji. They too were children of a Dudua, proud heirs of Yoruba blood, guardians of the sacred traditions. While Benin built an empire with warriors and walls, Akure built its strength with its Yoruba brothers in Ondu, Akiti, linked by blood, trade, and faith in IFA. The two kingdoms, Benin and Akure, lived side by side. They traded kola, ivory, and palm oil. They shared stories and songs carried by wandering minstrels. But beneath this peace flowed a quiet river of pride. For the Oba of Benin believed all kings owed him respect, that all must bow to his throne. But the Deji of Akure said, "I too am descended from a Dudua. I bow only to the gods of Ife." And so the seeds of rivalry were planted, not in a day, not in a year, but over generations. The people did not yet know it, but a storm was gathering. A storm that would shake the forest, paint the rivers red, and etch forever into memory the tale of the Benin-Akure War. When two elephants walk upon the same path, the earth trembles. And when two lions roar in the same forest, the gazelle knows no peace. So it was with Benin and Akure. The Obas of Benin, heirs of Yuka, ruled with the fire of empire. Their armies marched across rivers and hills, bringing towns under their shadow. From O to Lagos, many paid tribute, carrying ivory tusks, coral beads, and cowries to the Oba's palace. For the Oba was not just a king, he was Oba Adu, Oba Ovenramwan, Oba the Eternal, a ruler whose word was law and whose breath was destiny. But in Akure, the Deji sat upon his stool, and his chiefs stood around him, proud and unbending. "We are children of a Dudua," they said. "We bow to no throne except that of Ife, the navel of the world." For years, Benin sent messengers to Akure, bearing the words of the Oba. "Remember who you are. Pay homage. Send tribute, as your neighbors do." But the Deji replied, "Tell your Oba, I am not his child. I am his equal." And so the embers of pride began to glow. Word can wound more deeply than swords. One day, the Oba of Benin sent an emissary to Akure, bearing demands of tribute. But in Akure, the emissary was dishonoured. Some say he was mocked. Others whisper he was killed. Whatever the truth, the message that reached Benin was bitter. Akure has spat in the face of the Oba. An insult to the Oba is an insult to the gods themselves. For the Oba's throne is not merely carved wood. It is a seat of the ancestors, the living spirit of a land. The Oba's anger shook the palace. He swore that the pride of Akure would be broken, that their king would kneel before Edo power. Benin prepares for war. Drummers beat messages from village to village. Warriors sharpen their iron blades. Hunters oil their charms. The Izan, the Ishan, the Edo warriors all prepared to march westward under command of Benin's generals. And in Akure, the Deji too called his chiefs. "The leopard has risen," he said, "but the buffalo does not run. We will meet them." The hunters of Akiti, the warriors of Ondu, the brave men of Ode were summoned. But Yoruba politics was like the strands of a raffia mat, never fully tied together. Many watched from a distance, fearful of Benin's might. So Akure stood proud, but somewhat alone. The quarrel was no longer about trade. It was no longer about tribute. It was about the crown. For Benin, only one sun could shine in the sky, and that sun was the Oba. For Akure, the Yoruba blood of Adajua was its shield, and the Deji's stool could not be made lesser by any foreign power. Two truths stood face to face. Neither could bow, neither could yield, and when truth refuses to bend, it breaks into war. Thus the storm gathered, the war drum sounded, the leopard sharpened its claws, and the buffalo lowered its horns. The earth waited, trembling. The time had come for sword to speak where words had failed. And so began the march toward the war that would shake kingdoms of Benin-Akure War. When the forest is silent and the moon hides its face, the spirits whisper of that war, the Benin-Akure War, a clash written in blood and memory. The warriors of Benin moved like a great tide, disciplined and fierce. They were men hardened by many campaigns, wearing charms upon their bodies, and carrying spears that glittered like lightning. Behind them stood the Oba's command, let Akure bow, or let it burn. In Akure, the Deji led his men with courage. Hunters from the forest, warriors of the town, chiefs and commoners alike, they gathered with drums and chants, calling upon Algun, god of iron, to guide their blades. The battle was fierce. Songs tell the clash of steel, of arrows darkening the sky, of charms breaking and men falling like trees in a storm. The ground drank the blood of both Edo and Yoruba. But the tide of Benin was heavy, its warriors many, its generals seasoned. Slowly, Akure's defenses faltered. The city was stormed. The palace of the Deji trembled under Edo firepower. Some say the Deji was captured and taken to Benin in chains. Others say he fell in battle, refusing to flee. The storytellers do not always agree, but they all tell the sorrow that followed. Akure was humbled. Benin's power pressed upon it, a warning to all Yoruba towns that defiance carried a heavy price. Tribute was enforced, and the Oba's prestige soared. Pride is like the Iroko tree. You may cut its branches, but its roots remain deep. Akure endured, scarred but unbroken, still tied to Yoruba heritage, still claiming the blessing of Adajua. And Benin, too, though victorious, carried the mark of that war. For every conquest drains a kingdom's strength. In time, the great empire itself would face storms, from Europeans at the coast, and from the shifting sands of power within. The story of the Benin-Akure War is not only a tale of battles, but a mirror. It shows us what happens when pride meets pride, when kingdoms forget that two suns cannot share one sky. Yet, it also tells us of resilience, how a people may be conquered, but never erased. How kingdoms rise and fall, but the memory of their courage endures. So remember this. Power is a river, it flows, it shifts, it floods, it dries. But honor, culture, and the stories we keep, these are the stones that never move. That is a tale of Benin and Akure. I believe you enjoyed this history tale. Please like this video, let promote our history, and subscribe to encourage me to keep creating stories like this. Let's teach our history that are never taught in schools. Thank you as you subscribed.